The regional institution of teaching, learning and research for the cooperative and labor movements is pleased to engage stakeholders of the regional credit union movement to begin discussions on the various coping mechanisms which the members are facing during this global pandemic. We are pleased to continue to partner with the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions and the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago. Also, we are joined by a number of regional territories. We have, in addition to Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, Belize, Grenada, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Jamaica, Barbados, Bahamas, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts and Nevis, Cayman Islands, and St. Lucia. So as we go through today's presentation, we will be receiving presentations from 4 dynamic speakers. Those speakers are in the persons of Ms. Denise Garfield, and she is the General Manager of the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. We have Mr. Anthony Pilgrim, who is the Chief Executive Officer and General Manager of the Barbados Cooperative and Credit Union League. We have Mr. Robin Levy. I want to get the Levy correct. And he is the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League. And we have Ms. Diane Joseph, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago. And without further ado, we'll be jumping right into those presentations. And first up, we have Ms. Denise Garfield, the General Manager of the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. So Denise, I hand the floor over to you and the mic and the presentation for you to take it away.
Thank you very much, Colin. Are you hearing me?
Yes, very loud and clear.
And you're seeing my presentation?
We are not seeing it as yet.
Okay, first I'd like to thank the college for facilitating these webinars over the next couple of weeks. And I know with the first webinar, we had our policymakers, the board, members of the board of directors. This week, we have the general managers of the various different jurisdictions presenting as to what is happening with COVID-19. I will be brief, but I will supply some very good information to all who are listening. And thank you all for listening this afternoon. We're looking at operational strategies. Are you still not seeing the presentation?
Yes, Denise, I've not seen the presentation as yet.
Okay. You know? Am I to share my screen?
Yes, just to share your entire screen.
Okay.
And we have our regional counterparts and cooperators just waiting with bated breath. And as we say, this is a series which will receive presentation. So yes, Denise, you are live. Yes.
Great. First, I will look at 5 areas, and pretty much we are a 19-member affiliate institution serving in 17 countries. And I would like to congratulate the CCCU. We have our newest member from Haiti, which became associate members last week. And thanks to the Jamaica League, they have sponsored their membership into CCCU. We also, when COVID-19 started back in late February, early March, we started to prepare some resources for all of our affiliates. And those I will share with you a little later. We have also engaged in cooperative social responsibility across the entire 17 countries. We have also communicated with various stakeholders, and we have also shared some growth opportunities for the Caribbean Credit Union movement. Some of the shared resources that we have developed for our member credit unions, as well as leagues, include that we did a pandemic checklist, which outlined all the different things that each credit union needed to have and what were the protocols involved in actually executing that checklist. We developed a pandemic program for credit unions. We provided a practical guide for staff as to whether if a staff member may have been exposed, what it is that needs to be done with the credit union as well as the employees. Telecommuting was a new area for us because the credit unions tended to be involved in daily operations within their offices. We had to employ telecommuting immediately, and as such, we developed a policy, shared this with the credit unions across all 17 countries. We also developed an Ease the Burden support program for members, which outlined a number of different ways in which members could be relieved of the burden of COVID-19. And credit unions were able to choose whichever one was suitable for their own situation and choose what it is that they could actually give to their members. We also did a paper on protecting credit union assets, because as you know, working from home remotely, you're exposed to cybercrime. And then we also looked at pre as well as during and post COVID-19 and realized that physical security needs to be stepped up as well. Crime is expected to increase. People have lost their jobs. And as such, we expect that credit unions would, be mindful of this and put certain things in place in the event that anything goes awry. We looked at sector evaluation. We provided an impact assessment tool for credit unions to be able to look at different areas of their operations. In terms of guidelines to mitigate a cash run on the credit union, we provided such. And we also looked at contingency planning for annual general meetings. In terms of cooperative social responsibility, I know our president handled it last week, but just to say that we received donations from Worldwide Foundation, which was specific for our frontline staff at the credit unions. And all affiliated countries were now in the process of distributing those funds to them to assist in their masks for protection of their staff. We also donated monies to our Pan American Health Organization. What we did, we looked at the reputable organizations throughout the region. We specifically targeted the Caribbean Regional Office of PAHO, which actually has all 17 countries as member affiliates. The Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency is actually the agency that is assisting with logistic distribution. And as such, we also donated funds to them as well. Overall, we donated 115,000 US to all three entities. In terms of communication, we constantly communicate with all 17 affiliates. On a weekly basis, we provide them with impact reports on the member jurisdictions. From the graph here, or from the table here, what you're seeing is all our members, all the affiliated countries, the number of cases that we've been tracking over a 3-week period, 4-week period, the number of deaths in each of those affiliated countries, and the number of recoveries as at May 6th. And this is what it looks like across our 17 countries. We see spikes in certain countries, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahamas, and we see in terms of deaths a similar trend as well. But what is of interest to us are the recoveries now. And I must say that that is doing very well. I must congratulate Anguilla, is the first of our member country to be COVID-free. They had 3 cases. All 3 cases have recovered. And we're seeing similar trends in the OECS countries. And we're hoping that we will see similar trends for the rest of our countries. In addition to that particular communication that we do for affiliates, we established a WhatsApp group within all 17 countries, and we constantly share information within that group. We have also held virtual meetings with our affiliates. We have discussed cybersecurity with them, making sure, because some of these things are new to us in terms of telecommuting, persons working from home, making sure that they don't download certain things on the company's laptop, etc. We also made sure that in each country, credit unions were seen as service organizations to provide access to financial services, and being one of them as essential services. I know there's debate about what is essential service, but we're talking about it from the perspective of access to financial services to survive. So I dealt with the cybersecurity. We also discussed electronic AGMs. We discussed dividend payments. We also were mindful that the hurricane season will soon be upon us. And I've basically asked our affiliates to not get too bogged down in COVID-19, but also to remember what's coming ahead and what's beyond COVID-19. So we have to prepare our members for the hurricane season. We also have to prepare our own offices for the hurricane season. And we also discussed some growth opportunities with the affiliates. Other communication that we have had has been with our regulators throughout the region. What we have been pushing is regulatory flexibility with standards. What we do, I have on a weekly basis, actually, a teleconference call with World Council of Credit Unions as to what's happening in the international arena. And what we're seeing is that the default definition has been changed from 90 days to 180 days. So we've had some discussions with regulators to see if they will be willing to adapt some of these. In terms of expected credit loss, in terms of accounting, as in IFRS 9, there has been a 1-year delay in implementing IFRS 9, which has been adopted by both the Basel Committee and the International Accounting Standard Board. In terms of expected credit loss, in terms of transitional arrangements, and what we're speaking about is the 5-year add back. They have implemented several transitional arrangements, and they have given a 2-year period comprising the years of 2020 and 2021, where jurisdictions may allow credit unions to add back up to 100%. However, this must be on a phased out straight line basis over the subsequent 3 years. So in addition to the original 5-year add back, this is an additional 3 years that they're getting. In terms of capital treatment, we are asking regulators to allow financial institutions, including credit unions, to tap into capital buffers. And as such, the treatment of loans considered to be in default specifically for payment moratoriums, that they be excluded from the counting of the days past due. And of course, we are looking at liquidity support for the movement, whereby we are approaching, well, we have approached the ECCB, we are approaching the Caribbean Development Bank, and also the Inter-American Development Bank. In terms of statutory flexibility, what we're looking at are dividend payments. I know in some jurisdictions, the central bank has issued whereby they prefer entities to hold dividend payments. But credit unions are a little bit different. And dividends goes back to the shareholders, which are the members. What we're asking for here is that once your credit union has completed their 2019 audit, that whatever dividend that they were proposing, that possibly a 50% or a 75% could be paid to members to assist them. However, we must be mindful that dividend payments should not be made if the credit union is undercapitalized. In terms of annual general meetings, given the fact that social distancing exists, I'm not sure, other than probably a football field, where we can have 100 members or more as a quorum to be 6 feet apart. So we are looking at annual general meetings being virtual, electronic for at least the year 2020, possibly reducing the quorum. That is the norm. And as such, we are pushing a number of these things with our regulators at this time. So there must be some growth opportunities coming out, and there must be business continuity after or during and post COVID-19. Of course, our annual general meetings. Business must go on, and as such, electronic is of course, right now, actually, we have been working with a supplier for electronic AGMs. We will be sending that to the affiliates for them to review. And we will also be having a webinar with the regulators to showcase the electronic virtual meeting, how it is that you can vote, how it is that you can authenticate your membership, among other things. Shared services for credit unions. We have to get to that stage. We don't compete on our back office operations. We compete on our front office operations, our product services, or service delivery. We have to get to the stage where we share services in countries, across borders, etc. Digitization. While I would say some credit unions in the Caribbean are digitized, not fully digitized. A credit union, yes, may be able to transfer money from their shares to their savings. If there's no ATM, they can't get access. Not a lot of credit unions have access to ATM services. Agricultural lending through cooperatives. I believe the credit union movement, we've been speaking about it for a long time, but we really need to start helping the cooperatives. It is the only way that I can see the region getting out of some of its dilemma that it is in now. We saw where the US, which is one of our biggest trading partner, stopped sending PPEs to the region. Who knows if they're gonna stop sending food? So farming, greenhouse farming, and we have to look at the different scenarios in each country, because a country like where we are located, where the head office is located, there are more monkeys than people. So people are afraid to plant because the monkeys are eating away the fruit. So greenhouse farming is what you would want to encourage there. But we must look at that with an emphasis on import substitution. I see the region based on statistics and what I'm seeing. I can see the region opening up way ahead of UK, the US, among others. I think regional tourism, local and regional tourism is a way, an avenue for us to continue to survive, for the economy to start back up. We also need to be mindful of the fact that, yes, they say second waves are coming, but we need to be mindful and keep the using the mask, doing the social distancing, among other things. But I see where we have an opportunity as a region to open up early and start the economies going and start tourism going locally and regionally, not internationally at this time. I think I have come to my 10 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much.
And if there are any questions or comments, I'm happy to.
Fantastic. We really appreciate that presentation, Denise. Thank you for sharing the experiences from across the region. One of the points they made was in terms of Anguilla also coming on board, and Anguilla I know is represented here this afternoon, and a lot of provocative points you raised. And those of you who are tuned in, we encourage you to just share your questions and comments in the YouTube chat. You know, really post your questions, post your comments for feedback from our presenters, you know, both today and following. You know, we really look forward to it. And of course, these presentations, as well as the recording of this webinar, will be made available to all the registrants. So we really look forward to that. So thank you once again, Denise. Denise Garfield, the General Manager of the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. So, and of course, those of you tuned into YouTube, we encourage you to like the page as well, subscribe to Cipriani College's YouTube channel. And as you are here today, you know, just post your comments and your feedback from the presentation. So thank you very much, Denise. So up next, we have Mr. Yes, we have the Barbados Cooperative and Credit Union League, and we have the General Manager, Mr. Anthony Pilgrim, here to make a presentation on the responses of the Barbados Credit Union units to the members' needs in COVID-19, that critical member need for which credit unions and all cooperatives are established. So, Anthony, we are ready for you to take it away, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
You hear me loud and clear?
Loud and clear. And
Yes.
all of us across the region.
Thank you very much, Colin,
Yes.
for this opportunity. On behalf of the Barbados League, it's a pleasure to take part in this webinar. We're discussing COVID-19, its impact, and specifically today, how we can respond to our members' needs. Before I do that, I would want to make some introductory comments to create a context for the meat of my presentation. COVID-19 is a pandemic which is a black swan event. And there are many unknowns in that regard. What is known, however, is that COVID-19 started out as a health crisis, but it has morphed into an economic crisis, the magnitude of which is yet to be determined. Some commentators have drawn parallels to the Great Depression of the 1930s. It is noted that economists have no definition of a depression, in contradistinction to a recession, which is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. But some commentators believe that COVID-19 could impact the world economy to the extent of the Great Depression, where we can have negative growth for 18 to 24 months or perhaps even longer. of the magnitude of double digits, etc. A recent report from the ILO forecasts that potentially 1.6 billion persons will be displaced from the global labor force as a direct consequence of COVID-19. This approximates to close to 50% of the global labor force. Turning to my home country to provide some context to my presentation, let me look at the performance of the economy for the first quarter of 2020, January to March. Our central bank recently released a report on the performance of the economy for the first quarter. Negative growth was experienced of the order of 3%. Further, it was forecast that for the calendar year 2020, GDP may decline by 6%. It should be noted that that forecast, and that is the annualized negative growth, can be regarded as a best case scenario because it is predicated on the assumption that tourism, which is the principal driver of the Barbados economy and accounts for nearly 50% of GDP growth, both directly and indirectly, will have a relatively quick recovery. I would want to add that in the case of Barbados, close to 30,000 claims for unemployment have been submitted to the relevant statutory authority to date. I highlight the above because it is important to have a backdrop against which decision makers in the credit union sector and at the individual credit union level, it is against that backdrop that we must craft our strategies and operating responses. This can appear to be a very daunting task. Leadership in these times, I make bold to say, is not for the faint-hearted. According to the Global Financial Stability Report published by the IMF as of April 2020, key priorities for countries during the COVID-19 crisis are to save lives and to support people and companies most affected by the pandemic COVID-19. In this connection, a delicate, and I will stress, a very delicate balance has to be struck between safeguarding financial stability and supporting economic activity, whilst at the same time softening the burden on individuals, i.e. credit union members, and firms. Key stats on the Barbados sector before I deal specifically with responses to member needs. 31 credit unions, 215,000 members, assets 2.6 billion, deposits 1.9 billion, close to 2 billion, loans 1.7 billion, equity and reserves 293 million, employees 550,000. That is the picture I wanted to paint before I look at how we craft the strategies to respond to members' needs. This may be having a little difficulty with my technology. Just give me 1 minute. Yes, I'm back with you. Sorry about that.
Right,
Operational
yes.
responses to member needs. First and foremost, I want to stress the public health dimension to this crisis. No one has a crystal ball in relation to the duration of COVID-19. They are optimistic forecasts, and they're forecasts that are more of the doomsday variety. My own view probably lies somewhere in between. But the reality is that the public health protocols must be observed for some time within the foreseeable future. This cannot be overstated. Therefore, the cooperative sector, and specifically credit union sector, which I'm focusing on today, we must ensure that all of these protocols are strictly observed as we respond and service the needs of our members. These include social distancing, wearing of PPEs, personal protective equipment, hygiene, robust hygiene practices, including cleaning of high contact surfaces and erecting barriers at member interface points where necessary and feasible. We must be in the vanguard of the protection of the health of our members and our employees. Another very important and critical response, and this was touched on by Denise during her presentation, is digitization, to provide digital solutions, to provide speed and convenience for our members. But it should also be noted that digitization also will facilitate the promotion of public health by allowing members to conduct transactions within the comfort of their homes. In the context of Barbados, this is evolving as a work in progress. Currently, there are 3 large societies which have given their members access to debit card solutions. And these debit cards can be utilized at ATMs and point of sale in our environment. These and other solutions must be rolled out to the entire credit union sector in Barbados. We at the Barbados Cooperative and Credit Union League Limited have embarked on an ambitious project to provide the digital suite of services to our credit union members. I must add that a critical development in this regard is that the credit union sector must be given access to the national payment systems. This payment system needs to be fully democratized. I can add that the government of Barbados has committed itself to the democratization of the national payment system, and indeed has given the green light for the credit union sector to be included in the national payment system. Responding to our members' needs as a sector generally and also at the unit level, I submit would largely be a function of the financial soundness and strength of the sector. Having adequate capital and liquidity buffers are critical in this regard, since these will be used to absorb losses and funding pressures in the initial instance. I say initial because it is noted, and that is why I painted that picture initially, in relation to COVID-19, indicating that there are too many unknowns in relation to how long the pandemic will last, whether it will be a second, third, or fourth wave, and the duration of those waves. The ability of institutions to respond effectively to the needs of their members, as I indicated, to repeat, is a function of the financial soundness and strength. In the case of Barbados, the sector is relatively well capitalized. In the aggregate, the capital buffer is of the order of 11.2% as at December 2019. And I should add that this is not a risk-weighted metric. It is actually a leverage metric. It's a leverage ratio, which indicates that by global standards, the sector is relatively well capitalized, which is a positive in this regard as we seek to respond to the needs of our members, because our members will require support in the form of a package of measures to ease the burden during these difficult times. Against this backdrop, responses to members' needs will include, but not be limited to, moratoria on loan repayments, waiver of late fees and penalties, waiver of penalties for CDs that do not run for the fixed term. Let me add that some of my comments in relation to responding to members' needs are somewhat futuristic in that I am certainly making the reasonable assumption that COVID-19 will be with us for a while. And the reality is that the aforementioned 3 bullet points that I just listed are short-term measures. After 3 months, and if those are extended, particularly in the case of loan moratoria for a further 3 months, and it is not unreasonable to anticipate that that will be a requirement, we may also need to look at restructuring loans as members' circumstances have changed, and unfortunately in some cases may have solidified as it relates to loss of employment for protracted periods. So therefore, we will also have to look at restructuring loans as a response to our members' needs in the not too distant future.
Nice.
But as I indicated, a lot of this will depend on the strength of the credit union balance sheet at the unit level and at the strength of the balance sheet of the sector at the aggregate level.
Fantastic.
Another response would be to provide funding for micro and SME sector. And I noticed that Denise also highlighted, and I certainly agree with that, seeking also to bring along the cooperative sector, which has lagged behind the growth of the financial services sector. In relation to lending to micro and SMEs, there's elevated risk. This has to be acknowledged. So we need to look at strategies to mitigate this risk. And these strategies will include, but not be limited to, upskilling our lending personnel in relation to assessing and underwriting this category of risks, providing technical support through what is referred to as hand-holding, and also tapping into loan guarantee schemes administered by central banks. These schemes typically do not cover 100% of the exposure, but they will certainly help to mitigate the risk. And there's the costs, attendant costs of ensuring the portfolio of balances. Much, of course, will depend on the risk appetite of the sector in the aggregate and at the unit level. But as I indicated, at this point in time, the sector is is reasonably well capitalized in the aggregate. And at this point in time, liquidity is not a challenge, but this could change. And to respond to our members' needs, we may need to engage at the highest level as it relates to providing a credible liquidity backstop for the sector, should it be required in the future.
Nice. Now, Anthony.
I believe that I may have approached or exceeded my 10-minute duration, Colin.
Yes.
So I think I've substantially covered my presentation.
Fantastic.
And at this point, I will hand over to my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I mean, a lot of provocative information. We really thank you, and we are receiving a lot of feedback, and we encourage you all to continue to ask questions in the chat box section of the YouTube channel, and of course, like the page, subscribe to the Cipriani College's YouTube channel, and continue posting the questions. Thanks so much, Anthony. Very thought-provoking, and I know you will have a lot of questions which you could continue to espouse your points. So thanks much for that. Next, we have Mr. Robin Levy, and he is the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Cooperative Credit Union League. And I must admit, I had to make sure I got the Levy correct. Coming from Jamaica, I wanted to make sure it wasn't Barrington, but we are here with Robin. So we invite him to come through to deliver his presentation, right, on the regional response of the Jamaican Credit Union units. Thanks so much, Robin. The floor is yours. Take it away, star.
Thank you very much, Colin. Greetings, colleagues. Colin, are you going to put up my slides, or should I share my desktop? I'm not sure which one you'd prefer.
Yeah, I encourage you to share your desktop so we can see it.
It doesn't seem to be allowing me to do so.
All right, so if that is the case, allow me to do it for you then.
Thank you very much, sir.
Right, yes, and you can take us through.
So, colleagues, to take you very quickly through the presentation I prepared and which I suspect Colin will be sharing with you later on. You can go to the next slide. We determined in approaching our response to this crisis to be as forward-looking as we could to determine what our objectives were going to be, what information gathering and assessment would have to be done to strategically determine what will be shared and when and with who, to look at our business continuity planning and protection of credit unions so that we have a strong credit union movement coming out of COVID-19 recovery, that we look at members' needs and determine how we could address them, and that we undertake certain assistance programs and initiatives, mostly to do with the phrase is supposed to be corporate social responsibility. We have started calling it cooperative social responsibility. So in defining our objectives, we understand the potential. We sought to understand the potential impact of COVID-19 on the global economy, because like all of you, our Caribbean neighbors, Jamaica's economy is very dependent on tourism. We're also very heavily dependent on remittances and international trade. So we do understand the challenges that are faced by small, open economies like ours. And we'll be looking to mitigate the negative impacts of COVID-19 on credit unions and our members, and see if we could even have an impact nationally. Of course, no crisis is so overwhelming that there wouldn't be opportunities that present themselves. And our thought was to identify what such opportunities might be, to potentially even grow credit union business, and of course, to improve our members' economic well-being. So we assessed information we had on hand, of course, having monitored the global and local situations, health, socioeconomic. We looked at, well, our league specifically is a repository for information for all of our credit unions. We do have monthly and quarterly and annual reporting to look at how well credit unions were capitalized, what their liquidity levels were, profitability, their PERS ratios, and so on. Jamaica's credit unions were found to be in generally very good health. Almost all had more than adequate capital, good reserves, strong liquidity. A few were slightly challenged and were borrowing externally to shore up their liquidity, one or two of our 25 credit unions. But credit unions were generally profitable, liquid, and well capitalized. And so, as well as we could expect, were in the best condition to be able to survive this crisis. We did some scenario planning. We looked at the potential impact. We looked at the possibility of a doubling of delinquency over 3 months. We looked at credit unions suffering from reduced loan repayments, increased withdrawals, and increased loan demand, all of which would stress liquidity and some of which would impact profitability. But we weren't that much concerned with profitability. We do understand that some credit unions, especially those who suffer extremely high delinquency, would potentially go into loss-making positions. But the majority of credit union loans here are collateralized. And even if losses did occur and were sustained, credit unions are in strong capital positions, as I've said before. So we then focused on members' needs for cash, not to gloss over it, because we do understand it's a very real threat. But we did instead spend a lot of our efforts on liquidity rather than profitability of credit unions to see them over the next 3 to 6 months as being the most critical phase of weathering the storm. So we looked at members' needs. We looked at their needs for cash. We know several members would have lost their jobs or suffered some household reduction of income. Many of our credit unions are still member-based. Some of our largest credit unions are those that cater to government employees, teachers who are as well government employed, although some are not, some are private, the police force, soldiers, and so on. And while we expect that the primary members may not have their incomes affected, it is entirely possible that others in their household may have suffered loss of income. And therefore, even those members' loan repayments might be affected. We understand members would need cash to perhaps withdraw some of their deposits and may have challenges continuing their loan payments as scheduled, so that members would need some eased loan repayment considerations. And we also consider that members who have lost and may still continue to lose jobs would actually need new loans for income replacement to start new businesses and so on. That's what our assessment told us. So again, we shored up credit unions first. We considered what they needed to continue in business. So we revisited our BCPs, activated our disaster recovery teams. We looked at several scenarios. Should credit unions continue business as usual? We looked at a scenario where they would operate using reduced capacity, offer a reduced number or range of services. And we even considered the possibility that credit unions may have to shut down if they were really hard hit by a large contagion within the credit union staff members. We drafted plans for all of these and revised plans and policies to avoid shutdown and hopefully even reduce services. To an extent, we were successful by revising the operational plans to allow remote work and to allow service remotely. We prepared the league prepared a COVID-19 response plan, risk response plan, which was circulated to credit unions and adopted by pretty much all of them. All these policy initiatives were also shared and passed by the respective credit union boards. So currently, as we are speaking, most credit unions in Jamaica continue to offer full service. There are some who have closed branches. Almost all have reduced service hours, however, and are encouraging members to access their services online. Probably about 70% of all credit unions offer internet banking services. And so members are able to do deposits, lodgements, transfers, transfer money to do bill payments and so on. And many credit unions, well, almost all credit unions offer our debit cards. So members are able to access their funds through ATMs, point of sale units across the island. Approximately most credit unions, somewhere between 50 and 75% of all their staff work remotely. Many credit unions activated virtual private networks, issued additional laptops to their staff members, made sure staff members had access to the internet off-site. We specifically said it doesn't have to be work from home, but off-site. Of course, most of them are work from home. And the credit unions have been very successful in implementing that. For the staff members who do continue to have to go into office, there were improved hygiene rituals. Many credit unions indulge in weekend sanitization of all service areas and even back office areas. There are new entrance protocols. Credit unions generally are checking the temperatures. Well, first of all, they are screening outside of the credit unions. If persons don't actually need to go in, then they can drop off materials or pick up materials outside of the credit union buildings or in the lobby. Anyone coming into the building usually they are electronic temperature tested from remotely. That is, I'm sure you all are aware of the machines that they use to check your temperature from about a foot away. And there is usually intraday cleaning of high touch areas. These are all, and of course there is still social distancing between persons who are still attending work. And also some of that is rotated so that the same set of persons are not exposed all the time, which of course also has its challenges, but which is considered to be more equitable. In terms of member initiatives, they were relaxed liquid asset requirements. Credit unions in Jamaica are no longer required to maintain 20% of their liquid assets, 20% of deposits in the form of liquid assets. I was reduced to 17%, with a possibility of going further down to 15% by mid-year. This would allow credit unions to actually lend more. And the figure is somewhere, I don't want to misspeak, it's somewhere in the region of 300 million Jamaican dollars. That's a little bit under $1 million US. The league actually is in the process of forming a liquidity loan fund, seeded by the stabilization fund. That's in the region of 3.5 million US dollars. So it would be actually 100 million US dollars. I have to get back to you on what the amount for additional loans would be. I think it's more like 100 million US dollars. And that liquidity loan fund can actually be subscribed to. So there are some credit unions, as we have said, who we expect to be less impacted by COVID-19. Those who are already very strong in liquidity and capital, who would actually have excess liquidity to be able to lend to other credit unions. So it's a means of managing the liquidity within the credit union movement. And of course, almost all credit unions now offer 3-month moratoriums on principal repayment to their members. It's done on a case-by-case basis. Members need to apply and are assessed as to whether or not this is right for them. And during this 3-month moratorium, interest does continue to accrue, and the loan term is simply extended by another 3 months. So it will affect the credit union's liquidity, but it won't necessarily affect their profitability. In addition, credit unions in Jamaica, the Credit Unions of Jamaica, which is the brand we have been using to promote our national and local CSR activities, donated US $30,000 to the national effort to provide PPE for frontline responders and our security forces. We've donated another 10,000 or so to homeless shelters and in individual donations to persons who need them. We're donating another 500,000 Jamaican, which is about $1,000 to repair ventilators, which are actually in the hospitals and are not working. It's actually a project done through the Jamaica Stock Exchange's social exchange, of which some of us sit on the board. And credit unions have assisted members in applying for government grants. The government has a stimulus package of US $178 million, and credit unions have been advising members as to how to access that stimulus package. We've also lobbied the government to allow us to access grant and loan funding for agriculture. I heard Dennis mention that. We think it's going to be an important plank in ensuring our food safety and recovery of our economy going forward. Community tourism, encouraging, we think that it may be quite a while before cross-border tourism starts up in a meaningful way, and that in the interim, we may be able to have staycations by local Jamaicans. And of course, we would want, as I mentioned before, we'd want to encourage some micro and small enterprise loans by credit unions. Not to businesses, of course, we can only lend to individuals. But this would be for members who would have lost their incomes or want to supplement their incomes by starting new lines or expanding existing lines of business. And we'd want to put credit unions in a position to take care of those. So in conclusion, we've had some successes. We are still watching the situation. We continue to lobby. And to make representations so that we can put credit unions in a position to continue to serve their members as best as they are able, and see if we can weather the storm and come through on the other side just as strong, if not stronger, for our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin Levy. Thanks for that fantastic, very thought-provoking presentation, and I know it was well received, and we are receiving a lot of questions for that presentation, which you will have the opportunity to respond to. And we encourage you all to continue to post the questions. We encourage you all to continue to like, to subscribe. And at this point in time, we transition to Ms. Diane Joseph. And Diane is the Chief Operating Officer of the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago. And today she would be presenting on the responses, the operational responses of the Trinidad and Tobago Credit Union member units. So Ms. Joseph, Diane, the floor is now yours.
Hi, good afternoon, Colin. And
good afternoon.
my panel and all those who are on the webinar. It is our pleasure to be a part of this joint partnership with the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions and the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies to host this webinar series. And we are getting straight into the presentation where we are speaking to the issue of the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago as the national umbrella body for credit unions. We are responsible for advocacy, lobbying, training, and development for and on behalf of credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a membership of 638,000 members. We are 73 years old, and we have an asset base of 16.5 billion TT dollars and 130 credit unions. In getting ready for treating with the COVID-19 pandemic, what we would have been doing as a league is to first of all monitor what would have been happening at the global level. We would have been in touch with the World Health Organization's publications and the Pan American Health Organization. We monitored what was happening in China, where the virus started. We also monitored what was happening in the United States, Italy, and a number of other areas so that we can get, as a league, first-hand information on what is happening so that we can take accurate information to our members. And what we did is to lead by example. And first of all, we decided to put our house in order and start putting our systems in place at the level of the league. What we would have done is to set up our own station for sanitization at our entrances. We would have outfitted our staff with the necessary tools and equipments to protect themselves, and we continue to monitor what was happening. Following that, we then felt it necessary to get in touch with our member credit unions and credit unions at large in Trinidad and Tobago to share information as to how they can protect themselves. To do that, we developed a very effective communication method, and we were aiming at strengthening the collective efforts of all credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, first we advised that they not panic. And at the level of the league, we thought that we should put things in place at our level, understand what is happening so that we will help our members to not panic. And we cannot separate what is happening from the league's level and the credit unions level, because the relationship between our member credit unions and credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago, it is inextricably intertwined. And one cannot operate without the other because the guidance comes from the level of the league. And in saying do not panic, we are happy to say that our credit unions did not panic. We continue to have personal contact with all credit unions as far as is possible. And for our members, we would have personally touched base with every credit union president, every credit union manager, and we would have been sharing continuous information to all credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago via our website, via circulars and other media, and also by personal contact. What we would also looking at is the leadership capacity of our credit unions to make sure that they are holding strong. And again, we are happy to say that the leadership of our credit union would have stepped up to what is required of them in a time like this. And they were all leading their organizations in a very positive path. We would have had, under the direction of the league, we would have sent out guidelines for change in working hours and also staff rotation. And all our credit unions would have bought into that guideline. And I am happy to say that all credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago are working to serve their credit unions with reduced hours, but within the capacity and reach of members. We do not have very long lines on the outside and making it very difficult for our members to get service. And all our credit unions are organized in such a fashion that the members can still come in and they can still be comfortable and they can have their work done. They have staff rotation, and they continue to work in collaboration and network with each other as well as the league. We have our 6 regional chapters of the league, and they are part of what we are doing. We met with the presidents of those chapters. We discussed our strategies. We discussed the change in how things are happening now and how we see the future going. We also had our presidents meeting to bring our presidents in the loop and to hear their views as well. And we continue to keep in collaboration with the World Council of Credit Unions publications and that of the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. And I am happy to say that the CCCU has set up the mechanism so that we, as the CEOs in our various organizations, could continue to collaborate. and share information as to what is happening around our various countries. And then we get straight to the effects on the solutions of COVID-19. And we all know, we hear about the talk social distancing, but we want to say more about physical distancing, and we do not lose the social touch of being with our members and of course our families at large. But let me focus on the members, because we need to have that social side. Credit unions have a very intimate social side with our members. And some of the things that would have been happening is the postponements of AGMs. Right here in Trinidad and Tobago, our very own league, we would have had to cancel our AGM. And also we had all our credit unions AGMs, many of them staying within the guidelines of the regulations of having their AGMs within 3 months of the statutory date, and they all had to postpone their AGMs as well. And so did our 6 regional chapters. So those are some of the effects on our credit unions and chapters here in Trinidad and Tobago, but we continue to work with strategy to move but to say that we have signed on to our agreement with the government for the COVID-19 emergency income loan, which is to the value of 100 million TT dollars. And tomorrow we will be signing with our government again our agreement between the credit union league, our credit unions, and the government for the rollout of that $100 million emergency loan for our members. And come Monday, we expect to be fully payments. We talk about honoraria, we talk about virtual meetings, and we have written to our regulator. We got very favorable responses, and credit unions have been processing their dividend payments as per the guidelines from the regulator. And I can tell you, the regulator did put some very strict guidelines to keep us in check and so forth, and we are working with that. We appreciate that guidance and support as well. And also we are looking at the issue of virtual meetings, and that may very well become the norm in the near future. And also we, as a league, we continue to have a 24 access support to all our shared services members in the areas of AML and CFT. So what we would have been doing here is providing the credit unions with information on fraud, phishing scams, being alert, looking out, because people are, of course, capitalizing on what is happening at this time and seeking to beat the system or to outsmart our members. And we continue to provide a 24-hour support and guidance to the shared services members. And in addition to that, during COVID-19, we provided the technology and the support mechanism for 24-hour access to all our member credit unions and all credit unions and cooperatives who need us at this point in time. And I can tell you they have been calling us 24 hours. We also look at some of the effects, and we are monitoring the restrictions, the physical distancing and the work from home arrangement. And we continue to embrace with all of that the philosophy of people helping people. So what our credit unions are doing better than they would have been doing before is debt consolidation, reduce interest rate for their members, financial counseling, and that is required more than before. And we are also pursuing waivers as requested, moratorium for our credit unions. And of course, many of them have set up and heightened the facility for care for our elderly, so that we do not have our elderly persons waiting in long lines and so. And also, in addition to that, they would have set up separate systems to take care of our frontline workers so that they can get through very quickly in doing their business and get back into their various organizations or business places. And let me say, as part of the people helping people, our credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago continue to reach out to our sole traders and entrepreneurs as well, and they continue to counsel and lend support as far as the COVID-19 is concerned, and all those who are affected by that pandemic and their businesses are affected will now be facilitated under our COVID-19 emergency loan. And then also we have our credit unions also practicing cooperation among cooperatives, and we have our credit unions, those who are weaker are being supported by those who are stronger, and the league has been playing a very important role in arranging MOUs and other arrangements between credit union to credit union here in Trinidad and Tobago, and facilitating financial and other support and other means of strengthening so that they can handle this period very effectively. How do we go forward from here? We are looking at a number of things, and I believe as the head of the operations of the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago that there will be some shift in how we operate. And our business continuity plans must be developed and must be in the forefront of our minds. And also we need to look at the changes that it will bring to our workplaces in terms of the physical distancing and what is required. We have to start thinking about that. We have to start thinking about our workplace policies, and also we will certainly have to relook our budgets and our strategic plans and look at the way we continue to do business, because we will want to survive as we go forward. And also we are saying from the perspective of IFRS 9, let me say that we will be going back to the regulators, and we will be going back at this with regard to the standard and how it is working for credit unions. Let me say that the add-back method has never been accepted in Trinidad and Tobago by the Institute of Chartered Accountants nor our regulator. This does not deter Trinidad and Tobago League. We will continue to pursue it now because we believe that it is of greater necessity at this point in time. And also, let me say that while we continue to look forward at doing things along a particular path, we must keep focused that we are credit unions most of all. And while we want to do things and we want to keep up with pace of the world, we must do so without losing sight of our identity as credit unions. And credit unions have been talking to us about mergers and amalgamations. We are there to facilitate that as well. Those have been coming up here, and we will then support as far as is possible to make sure that all of these things take place as best as we can. And that's it for me. Colin?
Thank you so much, Diane, for that insight into the going ons at the credit unions in Trinidad and Tobago. It was really very insightful and, of course, very instructive. And those questions keep coming on YouTube, and we encourage you all to continue posting your questions, like, share, subscribe to our YouTube page. So next we'll be going into the question and answer segment, and those questions have been coming fast and furious. So each presenter will be allowed a couple minutes just to respond to those questions. And I know, Robin, I know you have some constraints, so we will be coming to you. But first, I would like to pose a question to Denise based on your presentation, Denise. The question is, do you perceive that the regional integration, and you spoke a lot about the regional integration, that it would facilitate cross-fertilization of the credit union sector and acquisitions that would most likely benefit the members? Because as we move towards what is termed around the world the sharing and the collaborative economy, do you perceive that this regional integration, forums like these and others, could really bring about some cross-fertilization and acquisitions to benefit the membership? We're looking at the members' needs. Denise?
Yes, Colin, thanks for that question.
No problem.
Well, first of all, I've always had a vision whereby if I am in St. Kitts, I should be able to travel to Grenada and be able to access my funds. Grenada, we don't have that, but that's one of my visions.
Yeah.
So we have to come together as a region. We're small in numbers. I believe economies of scale can be achieved. The shared services that we have right in our own backyard, pretty much within our own affiliated countries, that to be able to come together as one unit to be able to offer a myriad of services. For us to really be serious about that and how it is that we can achieve it, I think it can be achieved. I know it can be achieved, and we just have to put some personal things aside.
Yeah.
Collaborative in an effort. It has to redound to our own members' benefit, as well as even the credit union's benefit, because I believe that they can offer more services if this is the way that we go.
Thank you so much. And the next question we have coming in, I would like to direct it to you, Robin. All right, and the question goes along the lines of the anticipated economic downturn. Now, in your presentation, you spoke about some of the, the coping mechanism strategies you're looking at within the territory, and the data suggests that the only countries in the Caribbean region which will experience growth is really the Dominican Republic as well as Guyana, even though it is less than previously anticipated. So in terms of that, how do you, look at a working strategy, all right, reaching the members, as well as reducing in some kind of way or coping with the operational costs that may arise in the light of the economic downturn. I saw you also spoke to addressing members' cash needs as well as for small businesses. Those kind of strategies in Jamaica, what do you anticipate in light of the perceived economic downturn? Robin?
Thank you for the question, Colin,
Yeah.
and colleagues. It's a challenging situation. It is predicted that Jamaica will actually have a will have a decline in its GDP for this year and potentially into next year.
Yeah.
Now, it's not as if Jamaica has had a robust economic growth before that.
Yeah.
We've been stagnant, low growth or no growth for decades.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen really what the final numbers are going to tally up to say. What we do know is that we do have a very entrepreneurial culture. Good. Jamaicans are very resilient in terms of, we have, well, I don't know what you call it in other Caribbean countries, but here we call it hustling.
Hustling.
We're good at hustling, right?
Yeah.
Let's ignore the scamming part for now, but we're good at hustling. And that is, we have probably, I believe, a few years ago, a study out of Harvard said that Jamaica starts the most number of new businesses in each year per capita. That's the kind of spirit that we would want to have credit unions encourage. Of course, we know it's a high-risk business. A large number of new businesses fail every year. And we want to ensure that credit unions make loans to these businesses that are already proven, are in existence and operating for some time, and the persons running them have some knowledge and have some capital as well to risk in the business. Right. And so that's why we are being very careful as well about these liquidity loans that we are planning to make and liquidity support we're planning to give, and even allowing more of the liquid assets to be converted into loans. But if we think we don't see there going to be any multinational that's going to come in Jamaica, suddenly drop here and employ hundreds of thousands of people. We're going to have to do it ourselves. So it's going to mean small businesses, micro businesses, and there will be some risks attached to that. Fortunately, we are probably in a good enough place to do that, and we're looking to see what the government's stimulus package is going to do in that regard as well.
All right, great. Thank you for that response. And as you brought up the question of the hustle and the comment on the hustle, that leads me into a question for Anthony. And I know you spoke on a lot of that hustle that Robin just spoke about, particularly as we term it, the entrepreneurial orientation of our members, and that emerging more and more in this COVID-19 era. And of course, that would call for a severe paradigm shift. But based on the experience of past epidemics and pandemics and crises, when the pendulum swings, it really swings back. So in terms of that paradigm shift and the entrepreneurial orientation needs, what kind of education program do you see we working into the cooperative and credit union sector to really bring about that sustainable change, especially talking about the Barbadian experience as well?
Thanks for the question, Colin. That's a very good question. Frankly, I do not think that in the context of Barbados, we have been as entrepreneurial, for example, as Jamaica in terms of their experience.
Yeah.
What I would say is that COVID-19 presents a genuine opportunity for us now to give impetus to that drive to develop a thriving entrepreneurial class within the Barbadian society. And I think that credit unions are actually well placed to assist in that whole process. Because education is one of our fundamental pillars in relation to how we respond to our members' needs and seek to empower them. So I think that we can play a significant role in that regard by developing education programs to cater to our members' needs, to assist them in developing micro and small businesses in this environment. Because at the end of the day, and I think Robin mentioned this, there is no crystal ball in relation to COVID-19 and its impact. I indicated in my presentation that the forecast is a decline in GDP of 6%. No one knows at the end of 2020 what the actual outcome will be. We do know that small businesses employ a significant percentage of the labor force.
Correct.
So certainly if you can give an impetus to the SME and micro sector and develop that strong entrepreneurial class, the economy of Barbados certainly can benefit. That will lead to a growth in GDP. It will also lead to new opportunities for employment. So I think certainly is an excellent opportunity for the credit union sector as a response to COVID-19.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that response. And it feeds into a question I have for Diane in terms of the Trinidad and Tobago experience. And you spoke specifically to certain products and services that have emerged in the Trinidad and Tobago context. So from that perspective, persons are asking for a bit more elaboration in terms of the emergency loan. All right, that emergency COVID-19 loan in Trinidad and Tobago. What are the parameters? I know you touched on some of the things you considered, but exactly where it will be targeted, especially for that 638,000 members we're speaking about.
Yes, Colin. The 100 million TT dollar emergency income loan program is a program in which the Cooperative Credit Union League and the government of Trinidad and Tobago have partnered. Government is financing that facility for the benefit of credit union members who have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. In that, if a credit union member has been laid off or a small business would have been affected, that under this facility, the credit unions who have signed on to the facility and will be offering that product, for want of a better word, they can offer those loans to members at 50% of their monthly salary up to a maximum of $5,000 at an interest rate of 0.5%, which will work out roughly on the declining balance to 3%. Generally, credit unions loans are 1% per month on the declining balance. For this facility, it is going to be half of 1%. When that member gets back their job and they are settling in once more, they will then begin repayment of that loan over a 24-month period. That is what the COVID-19 Emergency Income Loan Program is about.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And, you know, this segues into a question I have for Robin before I know you may have to leave. And in terms of, you know, combining the description you give of the hustle and that entrepreneurial drive to what Diane now spoke about in terms of, you know, lobbying the government, you know, what in your area have you all been able to successfully lobby and negotiate with the government of Jamaica to, you know, really garner that support for credit unions at this COVID-19 time? You know, and we're looking at the needs of the membership. As Denise said, it's unique in every territory. So, you know, have you all been able to lobby for that, and how did you go about lobbying? And is it something sustainable as well? Robin?
That's the question, Colin. So we have done direct and indirect lobbying. We have written directly ourselves to the Ministry of Finance and the public sector. We've written to our own Minister of Industry and Commerce. We've written to the Bank of Jamaica, our central bank. We've written to the Development Bank of Jamaica. Pretty much all asking for what facilities are available to be given afforded the same consideration that banks and other financial players are afforded, so that credit unions aren't overlooked in any of the initiatives that seem to be on track. We also lobbied, and credit unions were included as essential services in the first draft of the Emergency Services Act. We were excluded. So we made sure that credit union staffers and volunteers could get free movement during time of quarantines and you know, in the restricted movement space. Indirectly, we are a member of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. We also sit on several boards, the Jamaica Electronic Transfer Systems, the National Payments Council, and we use those as well we leverage those memberships to make sure that credit unions aren't overlooked and that we are included in pretty much anything that's going down. Is it sustainable? Absolutely. We have tried to put down roots in just about anywhere and everywhere to make sure we have a seat at the table. Wherever government looks, it's going to see a credit union representative, a member of the league, a member of a prominent credit union who represents those interests.
Fantastic. And I know we are coming close to our wrapping up time, but we will just take a couple more questions. And I want to really thank you, Robin. I know you are really pressed for time, and I would appreciate if we would hear your closing comments after these couple questions. And this one is directed to Denise, you know, and Anthony, you know, looking at any financial institutions really allowing, as Robin was now talking about, that kind of collaboration between banks and credit unions, all right, to facilitate ACH, some kind of automated clearinghouse system where payments can be made, received, and really facilitated at this, you know, restriction, quote unquote, lockdown period. You know, have you been receiving any reports from that, from the various institutions?
Ladies first.
Yeah,
Okay.
Denise, yeah.
Okay, well, we are aware that in Belize, but because Belize credit unions report to the central bank, they're actually doing a project now to become a part of the national payment system and doing ACH transactions. We at CCCU have signed an MOU with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and we are actually piloting the ACH project. So we are looking at different means and ways across the region as to how it is that we can facilitate this process, because we are large players in the market.
Yeah.
So we believe that we need to be a part of it. In Jamaica, and Robin can speak to it, there is the RTGS system, which is the real gross settlement system, which I think is a better system than the ACH system. But we are in discussions with them. I think it's more the methodology, because they don't want to, I mean, there are many credit unions in the region, while there are a few banks. So I know one of the ways that we are looking at is to have, whether it's one institution that facilitates the credit union transactions and then interface with the bank, rather than having each credit union interface.
Yeah.
So we are in discussions right now with a few other vendors in terms of facilitating that process.
All right, fantastic.
Yes, Colin, in the case
Yes,
of
Anthony.
Barbados,
Yes.
yes, credit unions will become part of the ACH. They are not currently, but it is a work in progress. The legislation is being amended. This is a positive decision taken by government. And as Denise mentioned, we are exploring the modality in relation to how credit unions will connect to the ACH. Here we have an environment where we have as many as 30 credit unions. So that is being crafted and shaped as we speak. But government is committed, and the movement is committed to full participation in the ACH. And as Denise also mentioned, the RTGS.
Right.
We'll be participating in both in the not too distant future, and we welcome that opportunity. As significant players within the financial system, time is ripe and overdue for the credit unions to be part of the national payment system.
All right, great. All right, and this is a question I want to kind of culminate a lot of the discussion, and it's a burning and it's a provocative question. And first, I'll direct it to Robin, and then I'll ask Diane to just respond. Now is a time where members cannot come together, particularly for annual general meetings, AGMs. And in Trinidad and Tobago and in a lot of territories, we call this the AGM season. And a lot of credit unions depend on the AGMs for their payment of dividends. So this, now, in terms of how members' needs are rolled out and, their expectations of belonging to an institution such as a credit union, they really anticipate the dividends. So in terms of that virtual meetings that you spoke about, how is, Jamaica really embracing the technology, all right? And we had a question in terms of that, in terms of continuing to exist in this time and age. How are you embracing the technology for virtual meetings while meeting members' needs to pay dividends, to hold meetings, and to do basic operations? The dividend question, Robin.
Sure, Colin. And actually, it's a very challenging area. It's one that we have had numerous discussions with the registrar of cooperatives with. We actually had been moving for him to consider the hosting of virtual AGMs. We are kind of not quite there. The registrar is concerned that if there are even a handful of members who do not have access to attend those meetings virtually, then they'll be disenfranchised. We don't want any single credit union member to be disenfranchised. What we have discussed with him is the possibility of credit union boards being allowed to issue interim dividends in some conservative amounts. We also have tiered capital structure in Jamaica. We have credit union members. We have credit unions whose members own permanent shares in the credit union, as well as voluntary shares, as well as some that have deferred shares. And as I think most persons on this call would know, the voluntary shares are really more like deposits. And so there is a far greater expectation of consistency of payment of those dividends. So we're actually in the process of finalizing with the registrar what it is that he would be able to, he would be willing to approve. We think he will allow the payment of interim dividends, of dividends to voluntary shares and deferred shares. Outright by the board of directors, and perhaps a very small conservative interim dividend to permanent shares that would then be ratified by the annual general meeting. But of course, many are still picks the cup and lip. We yet have to finalize that policy decision.
Yes, thank you very much. Diane, in terms of the response in Trinidad and Tobago to that need, that AGM and dividend need, that member need. Yeah.
Yes, Colin, in Trinidad and Tobago, we have similar sentiments being expressed by our members who are very interesting, as you say, in AGM time, AGM season or AGM mode. Fortunately, though, the League would have been in communication with our regulator and our line minister with regard to payment of some parts of dividends to our member. And that has been approved. Our regulator has approved the payment of 75% of the dividend proposed by the board of directors only if they would have had their annual audits completed and signed off. And in addition to that, they have also approved a percentage, I think it's like 50% of the honorary payment to officers as well, so that they can continue to perform and we can have the dividend paid to the members so that they can have a buffer in this time. What is also in that guidance to us is that the dividend payment and the honorary payment will be coming out of our reserve fund under the close watch of the regulator. And before it is actually effected, the regulator has to actually look at your audited statement, what the board would have proposed, before you have final approval to make those payments. And importantly, as soon as the AGM is held, that monies must go back to the reserve fund. So we are happy that our regulator and line minister would have supported the credit union movement in that regard.
Great, thanks much for that response. And that is such, it segues nice into the continuation of this series, because as we progress along this series, we will have a webinar for the regulator's position in these times, and even challenges and opportunities of regulators, as well as even drilling further down into the credit unions and how they are faring at this time. So as we wrap up, I would like to invite our presenters just 1 minute to bring closing remarks as we close off today's session and prepare for next week, same Thursday, 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time, and drill down further into the issues. And you, fellow cooperators, will have the opportunity to continue to ask these very thought-provoking questions and relevant questions in this COVID-19 period with credit unions. So I invite Denise, first of all, to just make some closing comments. Denise?
Thank you, Colin. First of all, I'd like to thank my other presenters, my fellow presenters. I thought the presentations were very well done and we learned a lot. I would like to also encourage all the participants who are listening to, get in touch with us with any additional information that you need. We are pushing for the electronic AGMs just for 2020. We are also looking at the dividend payments.
Nice.
That will help our members. I just here in St. Kitts, we have to sometimes be one-on-one with our members. Yeah. I suggested to the supermarkets that they actually look at partnering with the taxi association, because the taxi association is heavy into tourism. There's no tourism now. And partner with them to do deliveries. Just some simple things like those, just to have some income, some form of income going in. So we have encouraged credit unions here, where our head office is, to try and see what is out there. We have our members in whatever small way that we can.
Fantastic.
I again for this opportunity to share with the region what we are doing. And we're welcome to any other suggestions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Denise Garfield. Anthony Pilgrim. Anthony.
Yes, Colin, I was on mute, muting my mic.
All right. Yes.
I will be quick. Our members need us now more than ever. We need to do our best to respond to their needs in this very challenging time, COVID-19. Here is hoping that the optimistic scenario painted by Denise in relation to the Anguilla situation is replicated across the region, and the movement can make a quick exit from COVID-19 and continue as a region to grow and prosper after this very difficult and challenging period. I thank you for the opportunity, Colin. Thank you, my fellow panelists.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And Robin, in terms of your closing comments and wishes for participants and fellow cooperators.
Well, this is one of those times when I'm extremely happy and proud to be a credit union member and participant. It's great to see that, you know, we have put aside our own personal needs, wants, challenges to really look at how to best serve our fellow man in the ways that we have. I've heard pretty much all of my colleagues here outline very insightful and useful plans to treat with this disease. We haven't rolled over and given up. We are making strides, and I have no doubt that we'll come out of this stronger than we were before. I think it's important that we understand that even though we're all facing the same storm, we're not all in the same boat. Some of our boats are a little bigger. Yes. Some of our boats may have a few holes in them. Some of our boats may have underpowered engines. So it's a question of how well we're going to be using what we have to get where we want to go and to make it through. I want to give my highest compliments and regards to you, Colin, to all my fellow cooperators, and even those who are not online here. I encourage them to keep their heads high and smile at the storm, because God is there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Robin. Well put. And Diane, your closing comments.
Hi, Colin.
Yes.
On behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Credit Union League and the Credit Union Movement and all our members in Trinidad and Tobago, I would like to say that as we enter this new era, which is unknown to all of us as to how things will unfold, we should do so with much confidence. Remain positive, believe in ourselves, and I would like to say to our credit union leaders, trust who you are and your capacity to do what is best for our members, because they are the reason for our being. I would also like to say that look towards accurate information. While social media is good, not all information there are good and can be used for our benefits. Let us all seek to get accurate information that can advance our cause as credit unions. I want to say a very special thank you to Robin and Anthony, Jamaica and Barbados, for being a part of this panel today. And I want to say it is a pleasure to be hosting jointly with the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies and the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. And on behalf of my board, my staff, and my team, I would like to say it is indeed our pleasure to share the same platform with you. We now pray for the safety of all of us, our families, and we look forward to the blessings of Almighty God on all of us. It has been my pleasure.
Great, thank you. And it has been my pleasure to moderate your very comprehensive, thought-provoking, and informative presentations. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Diane. And thank you to our fellow cooperators as we wrap up this second part of the webinar series hosted in collaboration with the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions and the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago. Next week, Thursday, we'll be taking an even deeper dive. So be sure to tune in, and as we move forward, look forward to the information being shared with you in the next couple of days. You know, look forward to that information being shared with you, the presentations that we made today, as well as some information coming out of the Cipriani College on some very interesting programs, particularly our certificate program in cooperative management. So on behalf of the college, our director, Dr. Andre Vincent Henry, the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions and the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago, we thank you, all participants, and we look forward to seeing you in our upcoming webinars. Thank you very much, and do continue to enjoy your day. Be safe at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, and God bless.
God bless.